Okay, so welcome everybody. My name, in case you didn't know, is Gitta Neufeld. I work upstairs in the Lake Franco, and I'm thrilled to be here as part of the SCA to discuss behind every successful man, the women in Moshe Rabbeinu's life. And what made me think about this is actually Midrash on the chapter of Eshet Chayil. We know that every Friday night in most Jewish homes, the chapter of Eshet Chayil is recited before Kiddush. And it's praise of a wonderful woman who does everything that needs to be done and how she raises her family and how she provides for her family, etc. You know, that's really nice, but like what's that doing in Tanakh? So the rabbis have a couple of midrashic interpretations of that chapter. One is, I'm going to ask you please to turn off your phones. One is, thank you for reminding me. Okay, one of the midrashic interpretations is that this is actually the eulogy that Abraham Avinu said for Sarah, which is a beautiful thought. Another possibility is that all this refers to the words of Torah, which is the way Rashi takes it. He takes each chapter, each verse, and explains it as referring to the relationship between the Jewish people and their bride, the Torah. But there's an interesting midrash, which takes each verse of Eshet Chayil and takes it to refer to a different woman in Jewish history. So that was really interesting. So, for example, Batach Ba'alev Ba'ala, her husband can rely on her. Zo Sarah Imenu, this is Sarah, whose husband benefited because of her presence. Gimlatu Tov V'lo Ra, she does good to him and not bad. Zo Rivka Imenu, that's Rivka, our mother Rebecca, because she did kindness to Yitzchak when she married him and replaced his mother. And that's a whole other story. Okay, so now let's move on. And it's interesting because there are several women in Moshe's life, 4 women that I mentioned in this chapter. So the first one is Vatakom mi'ba'od laila. She gets up early in the morning, or when it's still night. Zo Bitya bat Paro. This is the daughter Bitya, the daughter of Paro. Now, in our text that we're going to look at today, she's not called Bitya. That comes from Divrei Hayamim, from the Book of Chronicles. But everybody says that's her name, so we're going to say it's her name. Okay. Goya Haita, she was non-Jewish. V'na'asta Yehudiya, and she became Jewish. V'hiskiru shema bein haksherot, and her name is mentioned among the kosher women. Kosher women does not just mean that you have an OU on your forehead. What it means is somebody who's a role model, who's appropriate for you to follow. Bishvil she'aska b'Moshe, because she took care of Moshe, which we'll see in a moment. Lefichach zachta v'nichnesa b'chaya legan Eden. This is a little too woo-woo for me, but it says she never died. She entered Gan Eden. She entered paradise in a living state, like Eliyahu Hanavi. That's amazing. She took care of some baby that she found on the river. And this is her merit. Okay, the next one, Zamima Sadeh V'Tikacheu. She plotted for a field and then she acquired it. Zohi Yocheved. This is Yocheved, who is, if you look at your little family tree, is the mother of Moshe. Sheyatza Mimena Moshe. Moshe comes out of her. Shehu Shakul Keneged Yisrael Shenikra Kerem. He is equivalent to all of the Jews, all of the Jewish people who are called the vineyard of God. So this is the field, the vineyard is hers. Then we get to Chagra Ba'oz Motneha. She girded her loins with strength. Okay, you getting confused with this? I'll explain it in a moment. Okay, she girded her loins with strength. Zo Miriam. That's Miriam, Moshe's sister. Kodem Shnolad Moshe. Before Moshe was born, Amra Atida imi sheteled ben shemoshiach Israel. She said, my mother in the future is going to give birth to a child who will save the Jewish people. She's known as Miriam Hanivi'ah, Miriam the prophetess. Her prophecy was that the Jewish people would be redeemed by the son of her mother that was yet to be born. And we're going to come back to that in a moment. Okay, then we move on. We skip quite a few verses in Eshet Chayil, and we finally get to... sorry, I skipped one. We get to Elioz v'Hadar lebusha. She's clothed in strength and glory. Zo Elisheva bat Aminadav. This is Moshe Rabbeinu's sister-in-law, Elisheva, and hopefully we'll get to her. So let's look at the family tree. So this made me think, like, yeah.
Could you tell me where you got that from?
That's from Midrash Mishlei. And I copied it about like 100 years ago, which is why it looks like this. And I've been looking for it online, And it's one of these books that haven't been uploaded, but I will be happy to share it with you. Remind me tomorrow. Okay, so let's look at the family tree just to get a sense of who it is that we're talking about. If you have one of these in front of you, that's great. Are there any extras? Hi. Do you need one? What you got? Okay, great. So let's start from the top. Okay, Levi, we all know. Who's his father? Yaakov. Excellent. Okay, he has 3 sons. We're only concerned with one of them. Okay, we're concerned with his son Kahat. Okay, right underneath him. And really, this, I didn't write this, it came from a website. Really, there should be a line connecting Kahat to Yocheved. Because Levi to Yocheved. Yocheved is Levi's daughter. Okay? Now, Kahat has a son named Amram. So Amram married his uncle, which is forbidden by Torah. His aunt, sorry. Okay, which is forbidden by, the coffee is not strong enough. Amram married his aunt, which is forbidden by Torah law, but this is happening before there's a Torah, so we're doing okay. Okay, they have 3 children. Oldest is Miriam. Then they have a son, Aharon, and a son, Moshe. We're going to talk about the birth of Moshe in a couple of minutes. Just to go through the family tree, let's look at Aharon first. Aharon marries a woman named Elisheva, who is the sister of Nachshon ben Aminadav. What do we know about Nachshon ben Aminadav?
He jumped into the
Okay, that's what we know from the Midrash. What we know from Pshat is that he was the prince of the tribe of Yehuda. And he jumped into the sea and it split. Okay, we'll do that Midrash. It's one of my favorite Midrashim. It's you don't let obstacles get in your way. Ultimately, Nachshon is the great-great-great-great-grandfather of David HaMelech, King David. You see him all the way down at the bottom. That's Megillat Ruth. Come back in 49 days, we can do that one. Okay. Elisheva and Aaron have 4 children. They have 4 sons, Nadav, Avihu, Elazar, Itamar. Nadav and Avihu, we know, die. Okay, it was actually Rosh Chodesh Nisan. Okay, Bayom Hashmini. They die on the 8th of Nisan, thank you. Okay, they die because they did something inappropriate in the inauguration of the Mishkan. Then he still has 2 surviving sons, Elazar, Itamar. Elazar marries this girl whose father's name is Putiel, possibly identified with Yitro, and they have a child named Pinchas, the famous Pinchas. Okay. Miriam is not, her family lineage is not here, but by the way, she's the mother of Hur. Hur only appears once in the Torah. He tries to stop the Jews from doing the golden calf and he's killed. Okay, and then finally we have Moshe, who's married to Tzipporah, okay? Child of Yitro, maybe her brother was Chovav, maybe Chovav is another name for Yitro, we're not sure. Whatever it is, she has a bunch of sisters. Possibly Putiel is another name for Yitro, which means that Elazar married one of her sisters, could be. And they have 2 sons, Gershom and Eliezer. It doesn't matter who the children are that come out, that's not relevant. That's really relevant if you're looking at Divrei Hayamim. So this is not such a convoluted family tree. I think the only thing that's a little complicated is that Amram marries his aunt. So there's 2 levels of relationship, but other than that, it's a fairly easy family tree to look at. So let's see how these people appear, and let's look at the traits that these women in Moshe's life have that will affect us in terms of thinking about nature versus nurture, thinking about what is in Moshe's makeup that makes him the leader that he is, that he derived from all these women. Because I was thinking about it, that in Tanakh, the person that has the most women connected to him, probably, I'm not talking about Ahasuerus and all his wives, or Shlomo and all his wives, but women that we know about, I think it's Moshe. I really do. Maybe David HaMelech is a close second. Because David, we really only know about 2 of his wives in any kind of detail. Here we know a lot more detail about a lot more. 2 wives.
And Zilpah and his mother.
Okay, so but really, Bilan Zilpah, you don't know much. And his mother, there's the one story. You know, like when you think about it, there's like a lot of women influencing Moshe. And I would like to say that this maybe is one of the origins of, there's a famous saying, B'schut nashim tzidkaniyot nigalu avotenu. Our forefathers were redeemed from Egypt in the merit of righteous women. On the macro level, maybe it is all these righteous women in Egypt. But I would like to think that on the micro level, the person who redeemed them, Moshe, was influenced by all these righteous women in his immediate circle, and that's what made Moshe into the leader that he is, and enabled him to be the person that took us out of Egypt. Because it wasn't an easy job. And let's see the traits that Moshe acquires from these women in his life that they fostered in him that would then make him into a leader. So I'm going to skip around a little bit in the Tanakh. I was going in the Chumash. I was going to give you source sheets, and then I said, we have enough, we're in a shul, we have enough Chumashim, let's look. So if you don't mind turning to page 296, 297. Okay, there are more Chumashim in the back if anybody wants. Okay, we're in the beginning of chapter 2 of Sefer Shemot. And we're just going to read a short story. The first 10 verses in the chapter. Ready? Okay. Vayelach ish mibet Levi, a man from the house of Levi went, vayikach et bat Levi, and he married the daughter of Levi. Vatara isha vateled ben, she conceives and she gives birth to a son. Vatira oto ki tovhu, she sees that he's a goodly child. Vatitzbeneu shlosha yerechim, and she hides him for 3 months. She has to hide him because in chapter 1 there's a decree of genocide. Any Jewish boy that is born is to be thrown into the water. V'lo yachla od hatzpino. After 3 months she can no longer hide him. Vatikach lo tevat gomer. She takes a basket made of reeds. Think about the old-fashioned laundry basket. Vatachmira b'chemer uvazefet, and she smears it with clay and with tar. Vatasem ba'at hayeled. She puts the baby into it. Vatasem basuf al svat hayor, and she puts it in the reeds that are right on the edge, on the bank of the river. We always think she put it in the river. She put it like balancing precariously on the bank. Let nature take its course. And I'm going to stop for a second. I can't imagine a woman having given birth to a child. We all know, because we have the hindsight, because we've heard this story so many times. We know who the baby is, we know who the mother is, we know who the father is. But imagine reading this for the first time. A woman in the middle of Nazi Germany, where she knows that if she goes to the hospital to have a baby, they will take that baby and kill it. She manages somehow to have the baby at home and is able to hide it for 3 months. And then she realizes she can't hide it anymore. So what does she do? She takes it to the door of the execution chamber. She leaves the baby on the bank of the river, which is where the babies were killed. And she just has to leave that child. I can't imagine what the emotions are that are going through this woman's heart. And she put him in a basket. I don't know. You ever see those paper sailboats?
Yeah.
You know, like, what does she think is going to save him, sticking him in a basket? If a Jew finds him, he has no power. If a non-Jew finds him, he's going to figure out, like, why would somebody leave a baby over here? Because it must be a Jewish baby. Well, the king will kill me if I save this baby. So he's going to kill the baby. Like, what kind of a fate is she leaving her child to? And to me, this is such a heartbreaking scene. And I think that's why she's removed. What happens is she puts him there. And then we don't hear about Mom again. Yeah.
I mean, to me, I see it as very hopeful and heartwarming because the reeds is a place where things can hide.
Okay.
And somebody can hide to watch him. And
but what are the chances, the realistic? I appreciate what you're saying, that it's
you're
hopeful, you can hide there.
you're right. In spite of all the chances, she's
still she's doing something. She's doing something. She doesn't say, I can't hide him, and the next time the patrol goes by and they hear a baby crying, I'm going to say, here he is. Yeah. Okay, and please put the name Moshe on his death certificate, or whatever his name is. You know, like, I'm not going to do that, but it sounds like the plan is a little desperate. Okay, it is desperate. Okay. And not only that, then Mom is removed from the picture. Well, who's watching out for him? He said somebody can watch. Okay. His sister stands there. I think the mother just can't even bear to see what's going to happen. I'm going to leave him there, and whatever happens, happens. I can't take the suspense anymore. I need to go home. So his sister stands there from far, to know what's going to happen to him. Vatered bat paro. All of a sudden, the princess appears. Lirchotz al hayor, to bathe by the river. V'narotel chot al yad hayor, and her maidservants are walking along. She's probably splashing, wading in the water, and her maidservants are next to her along the bank of the river. Okay. Vateret hateva betoch hasuf. She sees this little basket in those reeds. Vatishlachet amata, she sends her maidservant, vatikachea, and the maidservant takes this little basket. Vatiftach, she opens it. Vatirau et hayeled, she sees the baby. Vuhine nar boche, not only is there a baby, but he's crying. Vatachmol alav. What is come on, everybody, when a baby cries, unless you're on a plane to Israel and it's been going on for 8 hours already, when a baby cries, what's your first reaction? Aww. So the baby is crying and she has mercy on him. Vatomer miyaldei ha'ivrim zeh, and she says, this is a Jewish kid. The reality of it, nobody else would have taken a chance like this. It's got to be a Jewish child. Vatomer achoto, now the sister appears. And she says, El bat paro, to bat paro, ha'elech v'karati lach isha mineket mina ha'ivriot. Should I go and find you a nurse? Because there was no Similac. Should I go find you a nurse from the Jewish women? Vatinak lach et hayeled, and she will be able to nurse your baby, the baby. Vatomer la bat paro, lechi. Bat paro says to her, yeah, sure, go ahead. Vatelech ha'alma, the girl goes, vatikra et em hayeled. And guess who she calls? The mother of this baby. Vatomer la bat paro, and the daughter of Paro says to the nursemaid / we really know the mother, helichi et hayeled hazeh, take this boy, vehenikuhu li, and nurse him for me, because really, basically she's saying I'm adopting him, but you have to nurse him because I'm not equipped right now. Okay, v'ani eten et scharech, and I will pay you back, I will reward you. Vatikach ha'isha hayeled vatinikehu. She takes the baby and she nurses him. Vayigdal hayeled, and he grows up. At a certain point, you have to be weaned. Vativi'eu lebat paro, she brings him back to bat paro. Vayihi lach leben, and he's adopted by the daughter of Paro. Vatikra shemo Moshe, and she calls his name Moshe, Moses. Vatomer, and she said, Kimin hamayim yishituhu, I have drawn him out of the water. So now that I know, in the last pasuk, in the 10th pasuk, I finally find out who the kid is. So knowing that, now I can retroactively figure out who the parents are, who the brother is, well, there's no brother mentioned here, who the sister is. I have to wait till chapter 6, really, to find that out. If I go to chapter 6, and I look at page 322, where there's a whole census going on. There's a whole census of who's going to be the leaders of the Jewish people. And I look at page 322, page 323, verse 20. Vayikach Amram et Yocheved dodato lo liisha. Amram took Yocheved, his aunt, as a wife. Vateled lo et Aharon ve'et Moshe. And she gave birth to Aaron and Moshe. So now I retroactively, it's like going on Genie.com and figuring out who you're related to. I retroactively figure out who am I related to. That this lady and this man that I was talking about were Amram and Yocheved, and the sister is Miriam. So now I can start filling in on my family tree. But the big question is, why is this story anonymous? Wouldn't it make a lot more sense to say, and Amram went and he married Yocheved? When you introduce a leader, you want to know his lineage. Somebody said not too much of a yichus. Yes, it is. It's a direct lineage to Yaakov Avinu, Levi, the tribe that was never enslaved, that was the spiritual leaders of that generation. Why aren't we giving credit to who these people are? Why is it that we don't name those people until later on? And I only find out the first name I hear, assuming Bat Paro is not her name, okay? The first name that I hear in this whole story is the name of Moshe. Any ideas? Why would that be? Why would it be anonymous until I hit the name Moshe?
Well, Vivian had a
Okay.
theory that it could be anyone's story.
Perfect. One possibility is we Jews don't believe in the Son of God. Okay, we believe in the Son of Man. That any human being is able to have a child that can rise to greatness. So this is an anonymous story to tell us that, you know what, it could have been any Levi, mi ish mi beit Levi. It could have been any bat Levi, fill in the blanks. Anybody has the potential to raise a child to greatness. And I think that's a beautiful lesson at the time of Pesach, which is really focused on our children and the way we deal with our children and how we involve them in continuing the traditions and continuing, keeping the faith, literally, that all these children have the potential to do that. And I think that's a beautiful lesson. Just a little more rationalistic thing. The Ramban says the reason that it doesn't mention the names is because it's in a hurry. The text is in a hurry. It wants to forget about who the parents are. I want to tell you about Moshe. Okay, so it kind of skips it. And you'll find out later. When you need to know, you'll find out. But that first reason, which I've heard not only from Vivian, but from other people as well, I think it's a beautiful reason in terms of education of our children and thinking about the future, that anybody has the potential. And I would even venture, and I know I've said this before, but I'm going to say it again, not the name Ima. Ima is Aramaic, it's mom. What's the Hebrew word for aim? Thank you.
Aim.
Okay, thank you. The Hebrew word for mother is aim. Aleph mem. Aleph mem. Okay? What other word, if I don't write the vowels, what other word is written the same way? Im, which means if. If. Im with an ayin is with. Im with an aleph is if. We, as parents, we need to see the ifs. We need to see the possible. We need to see the potential in each and every one of our children. And Victor, with all due respect to the man in the room, okay, how do you say father? Av. Aleph, bet. It's linear. They don't get this idea of potential and possibilities. Okay, it's straight. Okay, and by the way, you can continue that. Aleph, bet. Then what? How do you say a son? Ben. So the bet became a bet, like the beginning, and then a nun. And a grandchild? Well, it's in Tanakh, it's nin. Okay, so the nun, the end of ben is a nun, and the beginning of the word nin is a nun, and the end of nin is a nun, and a great-grandchild is a nechet in Tanakhic Hebrew. So you have that linear connection, one to the other. They just see straight ahead. They don't see the ifs. They don't see the possibles. They don't see the potential, which is why we're the ones that have the children. Because men, they don't get the potential. That's why we're so, it's innate, I think, in our nature that we can see possible, that we can walk around for 9 months feeling as, God, I can't even think about it. Okay, I have 2 students right now that are pregnant. I feel so sorry for them. Okay, but but it's like, what for? But I know what the end is for, so I can deal with this because I know what the end will be. And I think that's just an interesting lesson from there. So I want to take a little bit and use a little bit of midrashic outlook on this little section that we did right now. It says that this man from Levi went and he took the daughter of Levi, and then it goes on. So the Gemara in Sotah says, "Vayelech ish mi Beit Levi." A man from Beit Levi went. Le'echan halach. Where did he go? Okay, and it answers, Amar Rabbi Yehuda Bar Zvina. Rabbi Yehuda Bar Zvina says, Shahalach, he went ba'atzat bito. He followed his daughter's advice. Okay, so we know, look at the family tree. Who's his daughter? Miriam. So I'm not going to do it inside, but I'll tell you the Gemara on the outside. Amram was a great leader, as we said before. By the way, the name Amram, an elevated nation. Imagine, he's born when we're in exile. He's born when we're in Egypt. Even if the tribe of Levi did not suffer so much. To name your child Amram, an elevated nation, when you're really the immigrant second-class citizens that have to live in your own ghetto of Goshen, I think shows enormous hope by a parent. Same thing with Yocheved's name. Anyone? I just learned this year, what the name Yocheved means. Sorry? No, but what does the name Yocheved mean? Yo is very often instead of Yud Hey. Yocheved, the glory of God. Okay, isn't that beautiful? Okay, my niece was complaining about her name Yocheved, and her father did some research. So I think it's just beautiful that, the glory of God. And again, picture a family that's going into exile, even if, as Gail said, that she was born between the borders, that she was born as they entered Egypt, which is a midrash, and the Abarbanel shambles that midrash. He says it's ridiculous because then she would be 130 years old. So how come we don't know about this miracle that a 130-year-old lady had a baby? So he has a whole different thing on it. But even if she was born then, imagine a family that's leaving their homeland to go into uncertainty, to go voluntarily to be strangers, to leave the inheritance that they were promised by God, and that a parent can still name their child the glory of God. Think about the mission that child feels. when you named Yocheved, it's my job to bring the glory of God into this world. Okay, I think, by the way, I'm going to skip to Yocheved for a second. I really think that midrash, that she was born between the gates, like as she was born as they entered Egypt, is that she's the person who represents transition. That she has one eye looking back. She's the daughter of Levi, who lived in Eretz Canaan, where they were the sovereign, they were respected and everything. And then, on the other hand, she's coming into Egypt, where they're not going to be such hot tomatoes, especially after Yosef dies. Okay?
If you go with the 210 years, it works.
That's what I'm saying. But again, so then tell me why it doesn't say there was a miracle. Tells us they had multiple births. That's a miracle, but a 130-year-old lady?
But it wasn't like, we don't know if it was like the present 130.
But if they're excited about Sarah having a baby at 90, then for sure they should be excited about 130.
Well, it was old,
Right?
it was old news.
It was old news, okay. Yeah, Grandma did it already, big deal, okay.
So
Okay.
he wouldn't have divorced her because of the likelihood of her having a baby at that
Right,
age.
right, that's true. That's Amalia has a good point. Like, if she was 130 and we didn't expect her to have a child, then why should he have divorced her? He was worried about but we didn't get to that midrash yet, so let me give the midrash. Okay, so what was the advice of Miriam? That's the problem when you know the text. Like, I love teaching pieces that people don't know.
I don't know.
Okay, but no, when people know, like, you can't get kids excited after first grade about what's going to happen to the Jewish people because they know it from last year. Whatever the holiday, whatever the book, we survived. We're here. Okay, but so let's suspend our belief for a minute and pretend we don't know the outcome of the story. So what happens? Amram sees that this is, I'm going to use contemporary terms. Hitler has decided to kill out all children. So he says, why should we have kids? And he separates from his wife. Now, he's the leader of the generation. When people hear that he's separated from his wife, everybody else is going to follow. So his daughter goes over to him and says, you know what, Dad, you're worse than Hitler. Because Paro only decreed to kill
The boys.
the boys. But you are keeping anybody from being born. And it's a beautiful language where it says that he listened to his daughter, and he accepted her words, and he took his wife back publicly. He made it like a first marriage. And Aaron and Miriam, their children, were dancing in front of them. And Miriam, you can picture her with a little tambourine, and she's dancing, and they're doing all these steps, and like a flower girl. And it's actually, again, the Abarbanel says, well, if he took her back, then Aaron's like only 3 years old. And yeah, Miriam taught him how to dance. Like, he didn't get why it was so important. Miriam had a prophecy. She understood it was important. And she said to him, from this marriage, this is where she's a prophetess, from this marriage there will be the savior of the Jewish people. Once the child is born, Amram kisses her on the head and says, and he blesses her for the fact that another child is born. And then then they have to go hide this baby, and they have to get rid of him, and he gets very angry at her. Amram gets angry at his daughter. He says, you and your prophecy, which is why the Gemara says is she went to stand to see what was going on, because she had the faith. She believed that her brother would be the savior, and that he would be, and he would eventually be the redeemer. Okay, so we go on, and we see that there's a little bit more to the story. We have now Miriam over here, who is really insistent on redemption, and insistent on the fulfillment of a prophecy. She had a prophecy. She said, my brother, you will have a child, that child will be a redeemer. And she's going to do what she has to do to make that prophecy happen. So let's take Miriam a few steps further. Where's the next time we encounter Miriam? Okay, at the sea, at the Kriyat Yamsuf. Shifram Puah are Midrash, we're going to come to them in a minute, and they're in chapter 1. But let's jump forward to chapter...
She takes the instruments.
Yes, thank you. Okay, let's move forward to chapter 15. Okay, page 380, 381. Verse 20. Vatikach Miriam HaNevi'ah achot Aaron. Miriam the prophetess, the sister of Aaron, takes et hatof biyada, the cymbals or the tambourine or the drum, you can take your choice, in her hand. ותצאנה כל הנשים אחריה בתופים ובמחולות, and all the women follow her with musical instruments and dancing in circles. ותען להם מרים, and Miriam speaks up to them. She leads the chorus. שירו להשם כי גאו גאה, סוס ורחמו רמה בים. Praise God, sing to God, because he's exalted. He threw the rider into the sea.
Why isn't she Moshe's sister?
Okay, so why isn't she called Moshe's sister? Because when was she a prophetess? Before Moshe was born. She was Achot Miriam HaNiviyah when she was only Achot Aharon, the sister of Aaron.
There was a big.
Okay? What?
There's a big time difference between Moshe and Aaron.
3 years.
I think there's 3 years. 3 years. Okay, but at some point she's only Aaron's sister and then she's Moshe's sister. So let me just finish this thought. So somebody said they all took musical instruments, and Rashi says that. He says the women of that generation, talking about the righteous women, was so sure that this redemption would work out great. We left Egypt, and it's going to come out fantastic. They brought along musical instruments to celebrate. But notice the language that's used for Miriam's musical instrument. What does it say? She took Hatof, the drum.
Special one.
Okay, so the Brisker Rav, who is not known for really liking Midrashim, says, what's the drum? She saved the drum from when she danced in front of her parents 80 years before. Because that drum was the drum where she celebrated the potential birth of the Redeemer. She saved it to celebrate the actual redemption. So there's that tenacity of a mission. Amalia, you looking not happy?
Oh, no, I'm looking for where it says that Hashem says, don't sing, my people are drowning. It's like, is that?
No, that's Midrash.
That's
And
why,
he says it
that's
to the
why I was
angels.
unhappy.
No, okay. So I'm going to refer back because it's not fair when we have side conversations. Then I'll come to you. Okay. Why do we say half Hallel after the first 2 days of Pesach? Okay, because the sea was split on the seventh day, and the Gemara says the angels wanted the angels wanted to say their praises to God, and Hashem said, the work of my hands is drowning in the sea, and you're singing Shira. And that's why we pour out by the makot. We pour out the wine because our joy is not complete. Our enemies needed to be gotten rid of, but our joy is tempered. Thank you for the word. Our joy is tempered by the idea that one of God's creations in some way is suffering. So that's not text.
Yeah,
That's not text.
they're so ingrained. that I
Okay, yeah,
don't know
Vashti
what-
didn't have a
that's-
tail in the text either. Okay, question.
Question, where do we get that Miriam was a Neviah at a young age? She could have just been as,
But we don't have, and so there's no, the Gemara, when it looks through, it names us, there's 7 prophetesses. What's prophetess? I always feel like the
Prophetesses.
plural of prophetess should be propheti, but it isn't. Okay, there are 7 women prophets, okay, that we know of, and the Gemara tries to find words of prophecy for each one of them, and sometimes it says it's not in the text, and they'll say that Miriam told her father that you will have a son. It doesn't have always a direct quote of prophecy. In fact, for most of them, it doesn't. But she's called a Neviah, so I have to assume she was a prophet. And then she was a prophet in the time of when she was only Aaron's sister. One more time that we meet Miriam. Okay, at the end of her life, we have a little story which I'm not going into, where she gossips about her brother. You know how siblings are. You get together with one and you talk about the other. The problem is that when you are the family of Moshe, not so nice, okay? So, Miriam and Aaron are talking about Moshe. He thinks he's so great. He's not so great. We too have prophecy. What makes him so special? And she's punished for that with leprosy, with tzaraat, okay? And the whole Jewish people waits until she's cured as a thank you for when she stood for a few minutes in the reeds waiting to see what would happen to her brother. Think about the power. You don't realize the power of a good deed or a good intention and what it has. And then Miriam dies. And what happens immediately after Miriam dies? There's no water. The well dries up. There's no water. What's the connection between Miriam and the water? Okay, well, yeah, but why? Why water? Why water? Why couldn't it have been the man? Why couldn't it have been the clouds of glory? Why is it that Miriam herself is associated with water?
Because
It's
of
because
the
of
Yam
name.
Suf.
With
It's
the
essence
Yam
of
Suf.
her name.
Okay, so Gail is saying her name is, there's Mayim in her name, okay? But the name Miriam, by the way, is bitterness.
Yes.
Okay, Mar. Okay, my mother's name is not Miriam, it's Mariam. She never lets us forget it. Okay, but you have that sense of bitterness in there, okay? But she does have Mem Yud Mem in there, okay? We could take that. But so,
Because of the Yam Suf?
okay, maybe because of her singing at the Yam Suf, that expression of praise where she calls to the women to give praise as well, and that the absolute faith that she has. But I want to suggest something else. Water, without water, you can't live. You can't live. And Miriam was the one who ensured her brother's survival. Okay, imagine, the daughter of Paro comes, picks up the baby, says, oh, Jewish baby. Okay, so he's crying. So for a minute, it's like that puppy that you find, lahavdil. You know, the little kitten that you find under the garage. Okay, so for a minute, you're like, oh, he's so cute, he's so sweet. And then like, what the heck am I going to do with a kitten? I've got to think about a way to get rid of it. Okay, not necessarily euthanize it, but I'm not interested in it. And up steps Miriam, says, oh, I have a solution. I'll have the baby nurse. You'll have him back when he's toilet trained, weaned, and everything else. And he'll really be cute. You know, like a men's version of babies. Okay, okay, so yeah, Gail.
What about the fact that water was equated with Torah?
Oh, we're going to get to that in a second. Let me just finish this thought. Okay, so Miriam is the one that really ensures Moshe's life. Okay, then as Gail said, water, ein mayim ela Torah. Okay, we have water, really, just like we can't survive without water, we can't survive without Torah. Well, who's the one who's going to give us the Torah? Moshe. But his whole Torah, I think this is hinting to us, exists because of Miriam. Now, there's I just saw something that I printed out, and I'm sorry because it just was like not a. Sorry, I just have to find it. Okay, what happens to Moshe when the people ask him for water? What does he do? He gets so mad, and he hits the rock. And I think that's Moshe's expression of grief about his sister. Okay? He also cannot figure out how is life going to go on without, I wish my brother would hear this. How is life going to go on without my big sister? Okay, really, I think she's the one who really saved his life. Both by even just ensured that he would come into being. Okay? And I think that's why I think Moshe loses control of his emotions, not just because the people are driving him crazy. We want water, we want water, we want water. It's not that. He has his personal grief at the loss of his sister at the very moment that people are nudging him. And we all know, God forbid, when somebody is bereaved or you're in a bad emotional state, everything else becomes magnified and you can't respond. All the years that my father was in the hospital for a very long time, and my grandkids knew, like they couldn't talk to me for an hour after I came home. Because in that hour, I could not answer them the way I should answer them. Okay, because no matter what, you still, as much as you love the people, as much as you love you've led these people and you want to ensure their survival, you still need to be, that emotion that's there. So that's really not necessarily the power of the woman, I think it's the power of the relationship that Moshe had. But I want to, before we go forward, Judy, you have something to say?
It's disturbing that Kodesh Baruch Hu didn't give him a little slack on that if he was...
Well, I don't know that it was the slack, I think this was like this was the cherry on top. Like, so that's why Hashem says, okay, this all, like there was already, he was accumulating.
It could be the end of his time to be the leader.
Right.
If he was grieving.
That's a whole separate class. It's really a whole separate class. It's really a whole separate class. Okay, but I will say one thing, that a leader, really, unfortunately, leaders don't have private lives. Okay, and I'll digress with because I always digress, with two little digressions. One is that we know David HaMelech, this is Midrash, but I think there's a kernel of meaning, deep meaning in this. David HaMelech was only supposed to live for 3 hours, and Adam HaRishon saw his neshama, and he said, and he gives him 70 years. What does that mean? It means that the king, because David is like the epitome, the paradigm of a king is not a person. A king represents all of humanity. He's not his own. He had 3 hours of being his own person. After that, he belongs to the world. That's the 70, because Adam HaRishon is the whole world. The other thing is, I heard this last week. We just started reading Parshat Vayikra. And the Aleph is little. Okay? So there are many, many reasons for that Aleph to be little. God called to Moshe. So I heard somebody say that when God calls you to be a leader, your Aleph, yourself, your personal life becomes diminished because you belong to everybody else. I think that's really, it's a beautiful thought. It's a sad thought. I feel bad for those leaders' children, which is a whole separate class, but it really is something to think about. Moshe's sons especially, Moshe's Pilegesh. Pesel Micha is which is idolatrous worship in the time of the Shoftim, is led by one of Moshe's grandchildren. Because you know what? They didn't have dad taking care of them, granddad taking care of them. Okay, let's move a little bit backwards before we move a little bit forward. Because somebody had said that we have Shifra, and that Miriam and Yocheved were Shifra and Puah. Okay, so let's go to chapter 1 in Sefer Shemot. And let's read about these two midwives. And I will tell you, with full disclosure, not everybody agrees. You know, we learn this and we say, oh, it's got to be true, and it probably, maybe it is, maybe it isn't, but not everybody agrees that who they were. So let's look at page 294. Let's look at page 294, 295. Okay, verse 15, Tedvav. Ready? Vayomer Melech, we know Paro has this whole genocidal plan in a variety of steps. Vayomer Melech Mitzrayim lemiyaldot ha'ivriot. And the king of Egypt said to the Hebrew midwives, okay, Asher Shema Achat Shifra.
Or the midwives too.
Okay, we're going to get to that in a second, Jude. Okay, Asher Shema Achat Shifra. The name of one of them was Shifra, V'Shema Shenit Pu'ah, and the name of the second one was Pu'ah. So as Judy said, there's an argument: is it the Hebrew midwives, meaning the Jewish women, or were they the midwives of the Jewish women? Okay, different approaches. Rashi chooses that these were Jewish midwives. Okay, Vayomer, and he said, "V'yaldechem et ha'ivriot," when you are delivering the Jewish women, uritem al avanayim, and when you see on the the birthing stool as they're giving birth, in benhu, if it's a boy, v'ameten oto, kill it, v'im bati, and if it's a girl, v'chaya, and let it live. Okay, so there's his plan. Okay, by mistake, the baby died. Okay, or the baby was born dead. What happened to my baby? No boys are going to survive the birth process, intentionally. Okay, but these women feared God. And they didn't do as the king of Egypt had told them. They gave life to these children. We'll come back because it's a beautiful verse. He calls the midwives, and he said to them, why did you do this and you let the kids live? He says, this is ridiculous. Statistically impossible. Okay, there are boys running around. Where'd they come from? Okay? So, el Paro. They said to Paro, Jewish girls aren't like Egyptian girls. They're very lively. Okay, they're able to take care. They give birth. I guess nowadays we say they're crunchy, right? They give birth at home without anybody helping them. Okay, before the midwife gets here, they gave birth already. So we don't have time to say, oh, the baby died at birth. Right? So we can't do your plot. Okay? God benefited these women, these midwives, and the people increased and became many. Because the midwives feared God, God, He made them houses. So we meet these two righteous midwives. Okay? Whether they're Jewish or not, these are women with a very strong moral compass. They say, how can we kill babies? So that's one thing. It's like nice to know there's a flicker of morality in the middle of this decree. And I would say, if we're not going with the Midrash that these are Miriam and Yocheved, we're going to come to that in a minute, I would say these are the people for whom there were trees planted in Yad Vashem, the righteous Gentiles. These were people who said, we cannot stand to see this happen. And just by the way, like if we look carefully at the verses, okay, what does it say in verse 20? Vayitav Elokim lamiyaldot. God benefited the midwives. He rewarded them. So what should the next phrase be? What their reward is. What their reward is. Okay, what's the reward? The people were many and strong. The women saw that as their reward. That they succeeded. I don't need a prize. I'm just happy to see you alive, healthy. I think that's beautiful. They didn't do it for any sort of self-serving benefit. And then because they feared God, he made them houses. By the way, the Ibn Ezra in his rational outlook says it's not God that made them houses. It's Paro who made them jail houses. He stuck them in jail because he said, they're not doing what I want anyhow, so I'm putting them in jail. Okay, but most people interpret it that these women became dynasties. And that, most people interpret, not women, okay? Most people interpret it that they became dynasties. And who are these dynasties? Well, now we're going to say that Shifra and Pu'ah are Miriam and Yocheved. And the dynasties are the Kohanim and the kings that come from them. From Yocheved comes Aaron and the Kohanic lineage. Miriam marries into what's ultimately the antecedents of David HaMelech, and therefore kingship comes from her. Okay, we don't have any spouses for Miriam on here. Okay, so you have this thing. So what are these names, Shifra and Pu'ah? Because I think they tell us something about, if we say they're Miriam and Yocheved. Okay, I think they tell us, in Tanakh, when you have a name, there's a reason for a name. Okay, so Shifra. Okay.
I know Pu'ah was
Right, Pu'ah was pu. Okay, Shifra and Pu'ah. Okay, Shifra shahayta mishaperet et avlad. She would make the baby look. No. Mishaper is to improve. She would make the baby look better. She would make the baby look pretty before she showed it to its parent, to its mother. And Pu'ah, she would coo to the baby so that the baby would be quiet. And again, picture a woman giving birth under threat of death for this child. What did these two midwives do? They made the children more beloved to their parents. They were committed to the survival. It wasn't enough that they were committed to the survival. They wanted to make sure that those mothers bonded with those children and were also committed to their survival. Regardless if it's Miriam and Yocheved. That's a beautiful thought about the role of somebody else in the persons in the lives of these people. There are others that say that Shifra and Pu'ah, that if she would see a child Shifra, she would insert a tube like a shofar if she saw the baby was having difficulty breathing. She didn't say she intubated, so it's not like, okay, forget it, this one's gonna die and Paro will leave me alone. No. And there's a beautiful Gemara that says they would pray. Say normally, and Baruch Hashem, it's less in our times, but out of every 100 births, there's a certain percentage where things go wrong. Okay, I would say, thank God, much less nowadays, but there still is. It's still every normal child, every baby that's born after 9 months with an APGAR score of 8 or above is just as big a miracle as a baby that was born in the 6th month and was in the hospital for a year and then is able to go home. They're all miracles. Okay, but especially in this time, infant mortality was a fact of life. And I would expect if these midwives delivered 100 babies, a certain percentage would not be well or would die. And the Gemara in Sotah says they would pray before every birth and say, even if this child should have died, don't let Paro win. Don't let this child die. So look at that dedication to keeping the Jewish people alive. Okay, and can we see that in Moshe's DNA as well? His dedication to keep the Jewish people going. I know, Victor, 10 minutes. Okay, he only has enough memory on the card. So let's quickly get to the other 2 women in Moshe's life. Who's the next one? Well, 3 women. No, before Tzipora, the daughter of Paro, Bat Paro. Okay, she's a woman. She's his adoptive mother. And by the way, what name? Moshe Rabbeinu had 10 names. Okay, Moshe Rabbeinu had 10 names. It's in the Piyutim that we say on Simchat Torah. Okay, but what name do we use? The one that Bat Paro gave him, because she kept him alive, we thank her. And every time we say his name, except for the Piyutim on Simchat Torah, we use the name that this woman gave to him. Okay, and by the way, it says that Yocheved saw the baby Ki Tovhu, he's good. And from here the Gemara says his name was Tovya. Beautiful name. Has Hashem's name in it. Moshe, an Egyptian name. We're calling him by that Egyptian name out of gratitude to this woman who saved his life. And I want to say that Bat Paro has the ability to go against the forgive the pun because she does it by the river, to go against the current. Okay? What does she do? Her father has decreed. The father who was all powerful. All powerful, looks at you, doesn't like your haircut, off with your head. Okay, and he's the one who decrees death on these children. And she knows that he's a Jewish child. And she even says to the people around her, he's a Jewish child. And she's still able to save him. She still is able to stand up for Moshe and to convince her father that this child needs to be saved. Oh, that this child should be kept alive. And raise him where? In the king's palace. He needed to be raised there. Because if he would have been raised in that ghetto of Goshen, he never could have been a leader. He needed to be raised in a place where he learns, noblesse oblige, okay, that he needs to do for the community, and that he needs to act as a leader. It's really interesting. What are the 3 praises of the Jewish people in Egypt? That we worshipped idols, we were really stinkers. But what were the 3 things that we didn't change? Our names, our clothing, and our language.
And he did all
Okay?
three.
Okay, Moshe, Egyptian name. Clothing, he shows up by Yitro, and the girls say an Egyptian man saved us. How do they know? Because he's dressed like an Egyptian. At which point I do this. Okay. And language, he doesn't speak Hebrew well. He doesn't speak Hebrew well. So the person who lacks the qualities that everybody else has is able to lead them. Why? Because he grew up as a leader. He grew up knowing what it means to be a leader. Bat Paro gets the credit for that. Now we say her name is Bitya or Batya. Okay, that comes from Divrei Hayamim, from Chronicles. It says that Caleb married Caleb ben Yefuneh, one of the 2 spies who doesn't follow the other spies, marries this woman named Bitya. Over there, the Midrash says her name used to be Bat Paro, and now it's Bitya, the daughter of God, because she changed, and she too leaves Egypt with the Jewish nation and becomes part of the Jewish nation. Okay, just a side thing. So that is Bat Paro. Just the fact, without the Midrash, that she went there to convert. Rashi says, I think it's Rashi, says she went to the water because it was like a mikveh, because she was going to convert and become Jewish. There's no conversion. There's not. But just to be able to stand up for what's right is important. And one more thing that she did. If the baby is over there where Amalia is, and I'm the princess, she stretches out her hand, and I don't need it to be like Gumby. Okay, I just need a woman who stretches out her hand even though she's not going to reach there, because she tries. What that means is she tries. She doesn't say, forget it, I can't do it, no use. She makes an effort. She makes an effort even when it seems to be insurmountable and unable to succeed, but she still does it. Okay, finally, okay, we're going to do 2 real fast. Tzipporah. Tzipporah, the wife of Moshe. We don't really know that much about her from the text. We know that Moshe saves her by the well, her and her sisters. He marries her. He lives with his father-in-law Yitro for a while. Then he goes back. He has the vision at the burning bush. He decides to go back. He takes his wife and his children back with him. There's a little side story where he didn't bother doing Milah on his son, so she does it. Good for her. Okay. And she saves Moshe's life as well. And then they get to Egypt, and there's no wife and children. So what happened to them? So Aaron had come out to greet Moshe, and he says, "Who's this?" And he says, "Oh, your sister-in-law, your nephews." He goes, "Are you crazy? We're all enslaved, and you're bringing more people into this?" So he sends them back home, and Yitro brings them later. Which, by the way, if that happens, that Yitro comes after the giving of the Torah, means that the only 3 Jews that weren't at Mount Sinai were Tzipporah and her 2 sons. Just keep that in the back of your mind. Okay, just by the way. Okay, then, and that's all we really know about her. That's all we really know about her. But we see that at the time of somebody saying, "Oh, she's a Kushite," I heard that right. Okay, so that's a midrash. Okay, that little gossip that Miriam and Aaron had over there says, "Alisha Kushit asher lakach," because of the Ethiopian woman that he took. Rashi says that means Tzipporah, and then he says one of the few gematrias that he says is that Kushit is Yifat Toar. That Kushit means beautiful. Okay, but that's not pshat. That's not pshat. Okay, and then he goes to the whole thing, that's what they gossiped about, not that he married an Ethiopian woman, but that he separated himself from his wife, and they didn't separate from their spouses. We're not going there. But I want to say something over here, that here, first of all, you have a woman who is willing to follow her husband, because she sees it as a divine mission. She's willing to go with him with babies. Okay, this dedication to a mission, which influences Moshe. He has it, but it's enhanced by that. And when something needs to be done, her husband is on the verge of death in some kind of mystical experience, being swallowed up. Okay, she realizes what needs to be done and she does it. She doesn't go looking outside for solutions. And Moshe also does what needs to be done. And finally, let's deal with Elisheva for 1 second, because she's only a sister-in-law. Elisheva is the sister of Nachshon. And Elisheva had 4 great things happen on the same day. Her husband was the prince, and he was the first one to offer sacrifices in the dedication of the Mishkan. Her brother was a prince. Her husband is the Kohen Gadol. Her 2 sons are like Nadav and Avihu, are great people. But at the same time, she experiences a tragic death. Her 2 sons die on that same day of joy. But she, just like her husband Aaron, is able to accept it. And I think that maybe is also because Aaron can do it also. I think that's in Moshe also. There's a time to push back, and there's a time to accept. And I think that if we look at all these different traits that were in the feminine environment of Moshe, this staunch adherence to a mission, this commitment to keeping people alive, this looking for a solution even when things seem impossible, this idea of I will do what needs to be done, this really believing in the impossible, feeling a sense of responsibility for other people. Those midwives could have said, okay, we'll do what we have to do. We need to stay alive. These midwives could have been Oscar Schindler, or they could have been Kapos. They chose to be, sorry?
There's a really beautiful story about a Polish woman named Iyyun Gitta.
Right, yes.
They told
Same thing,
children.
right.
One of them was pregnant, one of the women
Right.
was pregnant, wanted an abortion.
Right, and she
said, "This
didn't."
is one child, Hitler won't. have."
Right, that's it. That's
And
it. I'm
that's
just saying. So look at all this willingness to take a risk, this fearing God. We're introduced to these midwives as the first people who fear God in the whole book. Are these 2 midwives? I think that's why all those things impacted on Moshe. And the Rambam, when he talks about personal development, he says a person has the ability to be as great as Moshe or as evil as Yeravam ben Nevat. Separate class why he picks Yeravam ben Nevat. Okay? But Moshe, look at who he's picking. He's picking a person not that was born great, a person that grew great. And I think that's maybe going back to why the whole story is anonymous. Because any one of us can grow great. And any one of us can bring our families to grow great. And we should all have a great Pesach.